security. Somebody who works for we have a very high security youth detention center that's recently opened just outside of the city. So the most dangerous youth in the country. And they approached me about teaching there. And my first thought was, I'm completely unprepared. So again, if I can go back to my Pilates training, if somebody came to me with osteoporosis or some sort of physical ailment, I would have taken a separate module to learn about it before I accepted that client. But somehow the word yoga is just like all-encompassing. And I just thought it was kind of irresponsible, but not in bad intention to request that, but that there isn't that language yet to describe that we do need special training for special populations. Yeah.
Joy?
Sorry, I was going to speak to something a while back, and so I'm just going to...
Or in the same stream?
No, I also was going to speak.
Why don't we follow the thread? Are you on the thread?
Yeah.
All right.
I just have one comment about the thread, because I feel like we're starting to tie into what Chaitanya was talking about pedagogical technique. And what's striking me is that when we're talking about teacher training, I'm hearing a lot about, within the teacher training, learning about yoga, learning what it is, learning the philosophy, learning the history, and not as much about really teaching people how to teach. And how to use their voice and how to hold a space and how to do all of these things. And I think trying to fit learning about yoga and then learning to teach yoga into the same space of hours is incredibly challenging. So I don't know what that means, but just when I'm hearing this, I think it ties in for me. It's like the difference between learning the practice and learning to teach the practice. I think it's two completely different things.
I just had a thought, if I may, about following from Monica's point, which is that just as an overview proposal, it sounds like what you're bringing up. I mean, up to this point, we've been talking about self-regulation within kind of like a normal studio context, right? And now we're speaking about what are these programs that are popping up, advertising discrete therapies for specific issues that people in proper therapeutic fields with proper training have to study for 10 years in order to have the right to deal with those populations, right? So I'm wondering, is that like a separate policing issue, self-policing issue almost? I mean, because it's it'd be it's very difficult for us all to agree what should be in a YTT program, but it's probably a lot easier for us to agree what should not be called a YTT program if it's about, a specific, if it involves an implicit therapeutic claim, as in, if you learn how to teach fertility yoga, you will help women have babies, through asanas.
No, I think those three strains. No, I think these three strains are really important, or these three strains: authenticity, scope of practice. Oh my God, that's huge, and often it's not even addressed in a teacher training program because it can't be. The program is too short. So authenticity, scope of practice, and claims. What are we being trained to do, or what are we training people to do? Do they understand that?
So can I squeeze you a little bit more though, and say, are these these things that you're bringing up that you find most odious? Are they
this week?
This week alone. Okay, so next week we'll have you back. But these things that are particularly odious, and which I felt a chill in the room. I knew it did get cold, but I mean, I think we all kind of responded. And I haven't really thought deeply about those specialty programs that I've seen bouncing around. But I'm wondering if that's a little bit more of a coherent issue that we can look at first as we look at this whole process of self-definition, as in we can argue about what the 200-hour training should contain, and we'll do that for 10 years, but but we know that somebody shouldn't be learning to call themselves a yoga teacher for cancer therapy over a weekend. We know that much.
Yeah, it's good because they're tangible. They're tangible, and
Yeah.
I think it's something we could all agree on. Yeah.
What do people think about that?
I don't actually. I'm not totally clear on the. I guess I need to make some distinctions. Like, is it that your concern is on people teaching other people how to teach fertility yoga, or is it that even just fertility-based classes are a problem?
Women who have fertility issues are extremely vulnerable. So whomever, in my view, whomever is working with those women needs to be highly skilled. But we, because there is no regulation, any of us could teach anyone, right? And that teaching can come, from an authentic experience. So if I have an experience and I want to, and I find out that, that you are experiencing, or suffering from a similar situation, then I might feel quite confident to teach crescents, That's one thing. But the next odious is then, well, I have success. She think, she's doing great. She thinks I'm great. Well, then the next step is to disseminate, my experience with everyone, and so I think that, that's, I personally don't have an issue with someone teaching someone, partly because nothing is regulated anyway. Yeah, it's the teaching teachers that that this week particularly has started to bother me, because things come over the internet, and it's like in waves, and there've been these waves recently.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess this, without detracting too much from the thread, it does take me back to just wanting to address something that Scott said earlier, which was around, I think, I'll misquote you, but you said that we can't run educational-based programs because they don't work. Like, the teacher training is what people are looking for, and just from anecdotal, personal experience, that I have made that shift over, like in my own school, and I've stopped calling what we're offering teacher training. So, and that our training is doing very well. So it's too soon to say really whether this shift will take on, but there's no mention of teacher training, and it's all about education. So I actually, it's just from personal experience, I actually don't agree.
I didn't know that was the case with what you're doing with Octopus, but I think that's great. I'm really interested to see who are the students who are coming for further education, who are not interested in teacher training, and is this in fact a viable market that we've missed? Because this would be fantastic if studios could, make a living from further education without necessarily encouraging people to take that education and go out and, teach others. Plus, then you could have a 5,000-hour teacher training because you don't need to get it over with quick.
Right. And that's just like, not just to relate back to what you were saying, Monica, is that, like, I think if the emphasis is on education, then it will just be revealed what needs more strengthening, what needs to be covered. If the emphasis is on how do we train people quickly to have a vocational shift, and that, wow, this is really great, I want to share it with others, the emphasis gets a bit fluffy.
And this also speaks to what Jennifer was saying, which is yoga has this amorphousness, and if we're presenting it as an educational program, which it is, then it'll be then the buyers, so to speak, will be more aware, and they'll be able to make judgments and decisions based on more awareness, which is what you were talking about too, Rosemary. That it's buyer beware at the moment, but we want the buyers to be more aware, of what they're not this fuzzy stuff. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's kind of, it's sort of like what you had said now is kind of like leading back to what you were saying. And I think basically is the idea is that there's not enough, like 200 hours is not enough. It's not enough education for somebody to go out and teach, like just like an asana class or a philosophy class or whatever, right? I think that maybe a good start would be to make the requirement at least 500 hours. Right? Like, why not make it? I think in the States, a lot of the places are going, that's the minimum now is 500 hours, because you're right, there's not enough time to teach all of the things in 200 hours, right?
Now, Joy, do you want somebody telling you to do 500 hours now?
No, but I think that if if everybody did it, like if everybody decided that now we're going to say you need to have 500 hours, I think that all of the schools would be okay with that. Like to say, I think anyways, the majority of them would be okay. So there's sort of like a bit of a problem in between the amount of time spent becoming a yoga teacher to what you actually get paid when you are a yoga teacher. So this is sort of the problem, right? It's like, yes, a lot of people are coming into the teacher training program and they think they're going to make a living. If they ask me if they're going to make a living at I will tell them, I will give them the truth, which is that, generally there's probably 2 out of every program that make a living off of it. And they, have another job while they do it, and not very many people go forward and have like their own studio and stuff. So it's a very unrealistic idea to think that, I'm going to do this and how much money am I going to get paid, right? And then to have standardized pay, I don't know if that's really a good idea. Like, I don't know if it's, like the kind of ideas that, same person graduates university. Do they each deserve the same amount of pay just because they both graduated university? No, I don't think so, right? It's totally as personal. And then the one other thing I have to say about being a yoga teacher, a lot of it has to do with personality. It's the person. People are connecting with that person who is teaching them something. The person could possibly not speak well. They could possibly, do the poses poorly, or, they may have lots of knowledge. But, it's a lot about connecting with a person. And some people may have been practicing for 20 years, but they don't connect well with people. So they're not going to be a good, maybe popular yoga teacher. I don't know how to say it, right? But I think there's, and I also too like the idea of that it's an educational program. For years Ron has been saying like 200 hours. So what is that? It's like, it's ridiculous, Especially if you think that somebody's coming in who hasn't had lots of years of practice prior to a 200-hour program. Like one good way, last thing I want to say is for me to kind of compare about who the actual people are. If you look at our studio and you look at how many people come to Mysore, where it's self-practice, and it's like with the same teacher continuously, and it's supposed to be over all, maybe 5 days a week or something, the numbers of people who actually come to that